Dump the dump!
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 While unlawfully obstructing vehicular traffic, I'm ordering you to leave this roadway now. If you do so voluntarily, no charges will be placed against you. If you refuse to leave, you will be placed under arrest and charged with disorderly conduct.
We started as a group of concerned citizens, residents, teachers, organizations. We started the protest because we have so many passionate New Yorkers that understand the real issue here. New Yorkers' health and safety are at risk. We are shouting with these protests, and we feel that we're just never being heard. The facts are not being looked at.
Hi, this is me, and this is my home. This is my family, my backyard, and my dog. This is my neighborhood. Pretty nice, right? Now imagine this. This is a marine transfer station. It is a city dump where garbage trucks put thousands of tons of trash every day. Dumps don't belong where people live and kids play, but imagine this one right here, next to 16 schools, 11 daycares, 2 senior centers, and 2 public housing projects.
I'm Kelly Nima Gunther, and I'm the president of Pledge to Protect. And why we started is we really wanted to understand what are the health and safety risks around putting a marine transfer station in such a densely populated residential community. I'm a mom of 2 beautiful girls who used a facility called Asphalt Green. It's a sports recreation facility that's going to be right in the middle of this marine transfer station. The marine transfer station will cut this facility in half. I first heard about that they were putting a garbage dump there, and honestly, my thought was, well, we all need to do our fair share. But as a mom, I thought I better do a little bit more investigative work to understand, well, what are the risks? And that's when I found out we have a real problem.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, this dump has got to go.
We know the facts. We know that this is not right for this community. This is not right for all New Yorkers.
Even though I live on what's called the Upper West Side down in the 60s and Columbus Avenue, I figured I needed to do something to raise awareness about this facility and the dangers.
This place was the site of a garbage transfer station for decades. The station was closed when it was no longer seen as necessary and the neighborhood had changed dramatically.
We used to have in the city, across all 5 boroughs, industrialized zones. But the city government has sold off these zones, as you see clearly at East 91st Street Marine Transfer Station. That was an industrialized zone. Asphalt Green was an asphalt plant. There was a vinegar factory, but they've rezoned, sold them off, made residential communities, and that has happened all over New York City. Even though the area was rezoned as residential, the city never tore down the old marine transfer station, thereby keeping that one small spot as an industrial zone.
It's only because there was a previous MTS built in decades and decades ago, and they could claim that that old site gave them grandfathered in rights to go forward with a new site.
Grandfathering is the process by which you take, in this narrow sense, you take an area that was once industrial, you don't rezone it, you hold it as being industrial. Even though houses have grown up around it, there's not a single industrial thing near it. But under this clause, this grandfathering excuse, they can now build this thing here despite the obvious illegality of it, were it not for the grandfathering.
Between the years of 2002 2005 was the development of the Solid Waste Management Plan. There's 2 major themes of this plan: environmental justice and borough equity. They said, okay, well, Manhattan has to do its fair share, so we're going to reopen the facility that was there before.
If they had claimed they were starting from scratch, this area would not meet the city's own regulations allowing them to build an MTS.
The city did come up with a regulation that you cannot put a private station next to public housing, next to schools, next to parks. And so what the city did is said, well, we'll put our own marine transfer station there that'll be next to public housing, schools, and parks. But this is the most appalling fact, that while the city is operating from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., they have leased it out to the private haulers, to those exact people that they said, you cannot build a station there, it's against city regulations, but you can come use our facility.
I've never in a Western democracy seen a garbage dump this close to people. I've seen them almost as close as this in the slums of Brazil.
It's closer to 35 times more families in public housing, and is nearby 30% more kids than all of them combined.
It was clear from the start that an MTS in a densely populated residential area, surrounded on all sides except the river by residential buildings and incredibly large numbers of children and elderly, that this absolutely didn't meet the standard of an area where an MTS should be built.
Their goal was to find an economical system that treated each borough fairly and treated communities fairly. So putting it at East 91st Street in Manhattan was seen as an Upper East Side rich white community.
It's so tragic that our neighborhood has been so mischaracterized as the Upper East Side. Yorkville, Lower East Harlem are not the Upper East Side. This is not Park Avenue.
Although you may see a lot of high-rises here and there, the majority of the district is 6-story walk-ups with seniors who live in rent-regulated apartments.
You only have to look at a simple street map of the city to see that we are the Siberia of the Upper East Side. We are 5 blocks from East Harlem, which is the most asthmatic neighborhood in the city.
I don't know how anyone can call a project environmental justice when it affects 2,200 NYCHA residents within less than a quarter mile and 5,700 within a half a mile.
The intent of their law was to support the environmental justice community message, which is we've got to stop putting these types of facilities in poor communities and typically communities of color. But yet, the city's doing exactly that.
Just because we're minorities and we live in public housing doesn't mean that we should get treated any differently.
We are on 93rd Street and 1st Avenue in the middle of Stanley Isaacs and Holmes, and there is the Children's Center and there is the Senior Center, and there is the Marine Transfer Station. Maybe 50 yards, maybe a maximum of 100 yards crossing the FDR. So literally a football throw away.
My proper given name is Rosemary Heary Bergen. I'm known as Mrs. Bergen to most people in the community. I'm the resident leader of Isaac's Houses, which is right here, these 3 buildings. Okay. I realize that some people look at this as a white issue. You know, it's those white folk that have, you know, they don't want in their backyard, and it's not necessarily in the white folk backyard. It's in public housing's backyard. And the makeup is very diverse.
Freeze! Everybody clap your hands. Come on, y'all. Hey! Crisscross. 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 Cha-cha, real smooth. Cha-cha. Let's go to work.
It's predominantly Hispanic and Black. So it's not a white issue, and it makes me sad to say that, and it makes me sad that people think that.
Well, my name is Milagros Velasquez. I'm a single working mom, and I've been living here in Holmes Towers for a little bit over 11 years. I think it's really silly for them to think that the Upper East Side is only rich white people, because here I stand before you, lady of color, minority, female at that. And, you know, I represent all these residents here, and it's not just rich white people, you know. We live here too, and we would like to be represented equally.
It's disgusting to me. I feel that, you know, that's a health hazard for the seniors that live around here, and I'm really against it.
My mom and my little brother already have asthma, and I do not want them to get any sicker.
My cousin and my auntie have asthma, so I don't think it's a good idea for everybody in the whole world to have asthma.
I've gone to the hospital because of asthma, and I don't want to go back because of the devil.
Medication is not cheap. You know, the city already wants to cut down on Medicaid. They want to cut down on your emergency room visits. They want to cut down on, you know, which medication you can get and which ones you can't. But how are we going to do this when this garbage dump is just going to cause more issues?
And I think one of the things that I've certainly been vocal and critical of is, what does this do to asthma? Do we have a study? Do we have any rationale or evidence that says this will make it better or worse? And I think if we can't answer that question, we need to pause and reevaluate.
I've been living in this neighborhood for going on almost 25 years now. I have very active at Asphalt Green while the garbage dump was in operation in the mid-'80s. So I do remember a time when it was operational, what that did to York Avenue and how different and essentially how adverse it was to the community back then.
My name is Lorraine, and I lived through the first transfer station in the 70s, 80s, in the 90s, and I was very pleased when it closed in 99 because I could finally smell Eli's bread.
So I could see directly out of my window. I lived at what my husband called the penthouse, the 24th floor. That was closest to any penthouse I ever lived in. And you could see and smell the garbage.
It smelled like a cesspool when I first moved here. You know what I'm saying? Raw. And not to say that, no, it didn't smell any better than feces.
Garbage trucks, when they squash something, it's like an explosion of stuff that can come out of it and stay around the truck. They get breathed in very heavily and very hard by kids playing because they're breathing 5 times as fast as they would normally. So they're going to pull in a lot more of this dust and toxic stuff that we don't even know about.
You get short of breath just walking up the street, and that's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
This will be the 91st Street Garbage Marine Transfer Station, and it will impact tens of thousands of people in Yorkville, East Harlem, and the Upper East Side. More people than any other MTS in the city, even more than all 6 of them put together.
The Talking Trash report was a report that we Pledge to Protect commissioned because we wanted to know the facts, the real facts. So we hired environmental experts. We hired people who are experts in pollution and noise pollution and air pollution. We hired traffic experts. We hired experts across the board. And to say, all we want to know is the truth. We're not looking for a story that says prove East 91st Street or the solid waste management plan is wrong. That wasn't our goal. But what we found was alarming on all fronts. So we met with Mayor de Blasio, and I honestly felt that once he had read the report and understood all the facts, he would absolutely put a pause button on this and reassess, is this the right thing for the Yorkville, East Harlem community? Is it the right thing for the city? So what he did is he appointed Commissioner Catherine Garcia to work with us as a community. Commissioner Catherine Garcia is the head of the Department of Sanitation. So she oversees all of our solid waste removal. She was the perfect person to be working with us and to really be going through the Talking Trash report and understand the health and safety dangers. So one of the very first things I wanted to do with Commissioner Garcia is to do what I had done, which is to take a tour of all the facilities and to show her the true uniqueness of the East 91st Street Marine Transfer Station within the Yorkville, East Harlem community. We've got a bus, many supporters came, many elected officials came. I think it's next, Councilmember Kalos. Which group? Councilmember Kalos, thank you so much for coming. And we took an entire day to go on a 5-borough tour.
We drove for 2 hours from the east side all the way across Brooklyn, and we finally made it to Staten Island.
We're at the New York City Department of Sanitation Staten Island transfer station, and we're being shown how things are working in Staten Island, and it's pretty bad here, and the good news is that nobody lives here.
There it is, Department of Sanitation. There's the Marine Transfer Station. As you can see, there's not many kids running around in this neighborhood. There are no residential buildings around here. This is all industrial. There's not much in the way of family homes or playgrounds in this area. That's the Marine Transfer Station in the background. As you can see, this is an active, highly used facility.
What we were able to demonstrate with this tour is that there isn't anything like the East 91st Street Marine Transfer Station. There isn't a single one located in such a densely populated residential community. Many people don't understand East 91st Street and what that looks like. To your right is a soccer field or a football field, a big playing field. To your left is a toddler playground where children under 5 years old play, and many of the schools around the area use that as their playground, the nursery schools. And then right behind that, you have a building and infrastructure that is the Aqua Center, is the swimming pool. Right between those two, the playing field, the playground, and the Aqua Center, is a long ramp. That is where all the trucks are going to enter to drive down this long ramp, go over the FDR, right into the facility.
You cannot have the mix of so many young children coming to Asphalt Green, a highly densely residential neighborhood with so many young children, seniors, and that many trucks coming into the neighborhood at accelerated speeds. Without there being problems.
So when the children ask, why is the city doing this to us? How is our city going to answer? The children are asking, will the city wake up and listen? Will they look at the facts? For their sake, for all of these children, we hope so.
Huge machines and vulnerable people do not belong together. Children are going to get run down by these garbage trucks. I have absolutely no doubt that they will. These things are very difficult to drive. The sight lines are very poor, and the children have to cross in front of them all the time. De Blasio's Vision Zero is zero vision and zero compassion when it gets to here.
The standard number of trucks right now, all right, DSNY Managed Waste, we have about 70 trucks on a peak day, all right? And that's before we would look, and we would operate the facility a year before we look to bring in commercial waste. So for the first year on a peak day, which is a Monday and Tuesday, we're about 70 trucks.
There's no way. I don't accept their numbers on. I don't know what factors they've looked at to say just 70 trucks, but I see that as impossible.
So actually the lowest, if they were doing commercial and residential, could actually be 150 trucks a day, and in fact is permitted to go as high as 3 or 4 times that. So to say only 70 trucks is very disingenuous.
It will be open 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. Up to 500 garbage trucks will drive to the dump every day, going through Asphalt Green, where I and 31,000 kids play in the playground, the playing fields, and where we swim. And the dump will threaten the safety of families and the health of thousands of kids with diesel fumes, which are carcinogenic. That means the fumes can cause lung disease, asthma, or even cancer.
New York City completed a multi-year community air survey in 2013, and the city found that this neighborhood is one of 4 remaining pollution hotspots in the entire city. That's now. Our population has increased, we have very dense traffic. Bringing many additional garbage trucks into this neighborhood will increase dangerous levels of pollution, including fine particulate matter.
So when we talk about air pollution, it does get a little bit technical, but what we've always been monitoring for is what's called PM10, and it's particulate matter 10. And they're bigger particulate matter. What science has come out with, and what we now newly understand as science is advanced, is there's a particulate matter called PM 2.5, and it is really dangerous. The World Health Organization has said it's dangerous. There's been ties to cancer, ties to brain development. It is dangerous to everybody. When you breathe in PM10, you can exhale it out. When you breathe in PM 2.5, it doesn't come out. It stays trapped in your lungs. That makes it extremely dangerous. That's the diesel emissions. Diesel emissions from the trucks and the tugs are emitting the PM 2.5.
The science is that we're already very polluted. The FDR Drive goes by here. There are so many people living here. There are so many skyscrapers, so many people in public housing, that we're already burdened. We deserve environmental justice. This is not environmental justice.
I learned in school that good government improves communities and protects its children. But unfortunately, that's not the case here. Instead, the garbage dump and hundreds of garbage trucks that will pass through the streets will threaten the safety of the children. Got to go! Hey ho! Hey ho! I know that the mayor is putting it here because other areas have dumps. But it is not right to keep making more dumps and garbage and to make more people sick instead of making people better. I'm asking the mayor to please stop the dump.
This is First Avenue, across from Isaac's home. The street is completely flooded.
This site is on FEMA Flood Zone A, the top FEMA flood zone. When this was permitted, Superstorm Sandy hadn't occurred. We didn't know how great the flood danger was here.
Stanley Isaacson Homes was directly impacted by Sandy. This area where we're standing right now was under about 3.5 feet of water going all the way out to First Avenue and a little beyond.
As it's currently designed and will be built, this MTS will be almost 6 feet, 5.59 feet below the FEMA flood elevation level and New York requirements. but there are no structural changes planned.
Would operationally prepare for that event and would not have garbage bags on the tipping floor when there was an anticipation of a storm surge.
The city has said that it requires 48 hours notice to ready the site, to get rid of any remaining garbage and do the waterproofing. So they need at least a minimum of 48 hours to floodproof this thing. Even DSNY and its engineer say that their plan, their floodproofing plan, has a moderate probability of failure.
When I met with FEMA, they said they wouldn't build in a flood zone. They don't think it's a good idea to build in a flood zone. That's why they issue maps showing where they are and encouraging people not to do it. The city has taken steps to encourage people who live in a flood zone not to build in a flood zone. Governor Cuomo started a program where he will buy the land for the state of people who live in a flood zone so that you don't rebuild because you know you're just going to be flooded again.
To place this garbage dump here is to put it in a danger zone. And I don't say those words lightly, but that's what I believe. There is no way that this garbage dump gets a permit to be put into place if Superstorm Sandy happened at a different date and time. We shouldn't allow some dates and time to change the analysis.
It used to cost $45 million to build, but now it will cost $1 billion to build and operate by the time I'm in my 20s, which means less money for after-school programs and other things paid for by taxpayers.
It's not any new technology where they're converting it to energy. And on top of it, if we just continue doing what we're doing now, we would literally save millions. Right now, we are hauling our garbage to New Jersey, where it is then incinerated, and we're paying roughly $90 a ton. Projected with this new site and what's involved with this new site without any new technology, the cost will jump to $238 per ton. That's a huge jump. That's taxpayers' money.
The $1 billion that they're planning to spend on putting up all these marine transfer stations is a waste of money when it could be invested in doing something that would actually help environmental justice, making sure that we achieved zero waste, making sure that we improve our fleet of trucks that are both residential and commercial, that the existing sites are fixed.
All of Manhattan's residential DSNY garbage is 100% handled by Manhattan. It does not touch another borough. If I'm a mom sitting in Brooklyn or in Bronx or in Queens thinking that they've got to build East 91st Street because I need to have relief, I need these garbage trucks off my streets, they might see maybe 10 trucks come off their street. That is not the relief that these communities need.
Well, that's the great hoax, I think, on the public, not just in Manhattan, but throughout the boroughs. People are arguing that we need to build more MTSs for environmental justice purposes. But the fact is, building this MTS won't remove any garbage from other neighborhoods.
The real problem, one of the real drivers of transfer stations and truck traffic in overburdened boroughs in Brooklyn and the Bronx is construction and demolition debris, that class of garbage. None of that garbage can come here.
It isn't enough for this plan to give any of those communities relief, but yet what we're doing is creating a whole new burden, all new health and safety impacts to a new community.
And so we keep being told we need to do this for environmental justice, we need to do this for borough equity, but when you ask the question, really you're going to spend 3 times the amount of money for none of that, just so you can pretend You put one in Manhattan, it makes no sense.
The science that makes this absurd exists at the broadest level and at the narrowest level. At the broadest level of how you dispose of garbage, this puts the emphasis on completely the wrong end of the process. The scientific evidence tells you that you try and stop as much stuff coming in, you try and take care of as much stuff within the boroughs as you can, and you dispose of as little as possible. None of those processes are being done.
We're still working off of sort of bad 20th century policy when it comes to solid waste management. The fact is, New York City's garbage is an enormous problem for us all. It's eating up literally more and more of our city budget every year. There are fewer options for moving it to landfills from wherever it is in the city to wherever those landfills are. So we're paying more for hauling, we're paying more for landfilling our garbage. We're not asking the right question, which is how do we decrease the amount of garbage we're producing? And there are lots of good answers. Our recycling rate here in New York City is abominable compared to many other large cities in the United States.
I've actually started reaching out to folks like San Francisco. I went there to personally meet with their person in charge of their Zero Waste Initiative to find out what things are San Francisco doing that New York City could do. And literally we are 30 years behind the curve with what San Francisco implemented in the 80s.
New York City is abysmal. We're the largest city in the US. We recycle only 15% of our waste, and the national average is 35%. We've got cities that are north of 60%. It is ridiculous that New York City cannot be a leader and cannot do better.
When I go to San Francisco and I say, I'm going to take every great idea you have and I'm going to make it happen in New York and we're going to do it better, they say, thank you. Because this is one planet, we're all in this together, and we really need New York City to stop polluting our planet.
There have been meetings, there have been discussions, but they haven't led to anything fruitful or, as far as I can tell, a serious policy discussion on what we should be doing. There's been full steam ahead by this administration on making the garbage dump operational. That much is clear.
I mean, let's just say we're all adults here, right? We cannot deny the kids at East 91st Street are in more danger, more risk, more harm than any other facility in New York City. I feel as if she understood it. I feel as if she still understands it. But I also feel that she's working for a mayor who is committed to this.
We are moving forward with this. We believe in the plan. We believe in borough equity. We want to do what we can to mitigate it. And that's what these conversations are about.
She says, well, I want to be a good neighbor. We will be a good neighbor. And then our response is, well, that's great. Prove to us you are a good neighbor. For a period of 2 to 5 years, we're asking you to monitor the air. Just do a continuous, real-time air monitoring for these pollutants. And when it exceeds tolerance levels, we'll shut the facility down, shut the activity down until those tolerance levels can come down. Unfortunately, we have not come to an agreement of that term yet.
All of us are really hoping that the Department of Environmental Conservation steps in here and reevaluates this permit. The permit has to be renewed in order for them to continue building. There's a moment here where our government can actually do its job.
So the DEC is the Department of Environmental Conservation, and they are responsible for really protecting the well-being of all New Yorkers, protecting the health, protecting their safety. And this is where the permits for the entire solid waste management plan were submitted. The permit was initially approved before Superstorm Sandy. It's up for renewal. Under their own regulations, if there are enough new and changed conditions, they are able to revoke, suspend, or modify the permit.
We're telling them that both the flood risk that was not known when this facility was permitted and the particulate pollution risk, that the standards were much laxer when this was issued. Those alone, along with other material changes, warrant a full review, a new review.
We know that the World Health Organization has classified diesel as a carcinogenic in 2012. We know that there's going to be significant air quality issues that will be introduced from this facility alone in an already polluted community. We also know that there's another pollution out there, and that's noise pollution. We know that standards to noise pollution have changed since the permit was approved.
Well, we're asking that they hold a hearing and listen to public comment and make a thorough review before even considering renewing the permit. So we've been pushing for that and are eagerly waiting for a response from the commissioner.
I think if the DEC is to be consistent with its own regulatory scheme, with its own language on its website about what its goals and purpose are, then they have to hold this type of hearing.
Where things stand now with the DEC is we've submitted all of our data and all of our facts. They are reviewing. They will be making a determination about the renewal of the permit.
The mayor of the city of New York could stop it overnight, could wake up tomorrow and go, you know what? I looked through all of those materials and all of those arguments and all that research again, and I realized this is just the wrong decision for the city of New York. And my administration is going to say it was another administration's proposal. We have better answers going forward.
It is an environmental disaster. You know it's going to be flooded, and it makes no sense on an economic level, a humane level, or a planning level. It's probably the worst public policy I've ever seen.
What angers me the most is the willingness of politicians to agree that they know this isn't going to help, and they know how expensive it is, and they know how damaging it is, and the symbolism is powerful enough that they feel no reason to even speak out.
I think it's become a political symbol, and it's one that people just don't want to touch. It's fraught with issues that if you fight against it, you're against borough equity and you're against environmental justice. And that is just not the case. I'm 100% for environmental justice and borough equity. And people need to understand this plan is not giving you that.
You know, the biggest irony is that you have this environmental justice movement trying to solve problems in the outer borough that are impacting poor people and children, and it ends up impacting more children, more poor people in a more polluted neighborhood. That's an incredible irony. You couldn't write that. You know.
The one thing I really wish that people would talk about is every opposition that we have to this plan is based on science, is based on facts. Every part that they have, there's not been one data, one bit of proof shown. And that is something that we challenged the city with. The city's response was, we can't refute your facts, but we're moving forward with the plan.
I think what makes me the angriest is that the facts aren't winning. I could accept losing a battle. I lose battles all the time as a legislator. But on the facts, I know that this community is right.
And what we're asking the mayor to do, at a minimum, is just to stop and pause and conduct a full, real environmental impact study, an independent environmental impact study, and just let the facts speak for themselves.
We do not need dump trucks in a neighborhood where our children play.